Apple Card Security, a podcast subscription that you might pay for, and iOS 15. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by TextExpander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more and download your free demo. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is the second in a three-part discussion with the MacVoices Live panel that covered a lot of ground with a lot of different topics. This time, we start in with some of the security that Apple is putting in place for its Apple Card. We talk about a podcast service that you may want to pay for or may not, and also start some discussions of iOS 15. So let's go back and let the panel do the talking. If it sounds like we're getting preachy, folks, I'm sorry, but we need to. We really need to. We want you to be safe.
Well, I was going to say we are, because Andrew and I have a not so secret goal on Security Friday. He knows where I'm headed with this. Our not so secret goal on Security Friday is to roll in on Friday and go, howdy do, buckaroos. We're here for Security Friday. Hi, Andrew. Hey, happy Friday. And go, we got nothing. We're just going to talk to you about the games we're playing on the Switch right now, because there's nothing to report. There have been, this week in data breaches, came up empty. This week in Facebook, we got nothing. This week in data leaks, nothing to speak of. Everybody's got everything behind a good password. Nobody's having trouble with their stuff getting out anywhere. So we're just going to talk to you about the latest modification update to Animal Crossing. Here we go.
Yeah. And that
That's
has
our
happened
goal.
Glorious. Yeah, that's maybe twice.
I was going to say
that,
once.
Like this week and last week, I think we've gotten enough security topics by like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Lunchtime Tuesday, we had a full slate for Friday. Yeah.
It's never going to come to that point as long as you have the human element in there.
I know.
At all.
Yeah.
Warren, let me have this one. Someday.
One day in the future when
someday we will have a moment.
Botnet or Skynet. When Skynet's taken over, we don't have to worry about the humans and their stupidity.
Yeah. Just a couple more things on this. We'll move on. But first of all, Brad says 1Password supports that iCloud syncing. Great point, Brad.
Yes.
Webb points out that 1Password can also save the authenticator token as well. Thank you, Webb. Absolutely correct.
Yeah, it'll do the TOTP for you, which is the authentication piece that, like I said, you have to go a little different route because it's not its own authenticator app. So you have to set that up, but it does work. And it will alert you when it's available. Yeah. On websites where it knows. So. And
the third piece from the other part of my life is that more and more insurance companies will not give you cyber insurance or other kinds of insurance if you do not have multi-factor authentication turned on. And it's appalling to me how many companies say, yeah, that's just too much trouble.
Wow. Part of my day job is rolling it out for people who go, we applied for cybersecurity insurance. Is there anyone there who could maybe talk to us about a password manager? Because apparently that's a thing we're supposed to do now. So it's not everybody, Chuck. I just want to give you a tiny bit of...
It's also camera companies. If you notice, Ring and Arlo and all those good stuff, they pushed it out, the two-factor authentication for pretty much everything.
Yeah, which is a really good thing, because you don't want somebody looking at your cameras. If it's your doorbell camera, it may not be a big deal. Your neighbor might think it's a big deal, but you won't think it's a big deal. But if it's the one that's inside your house, then it's a whole other matter.
Well, I think it's a big deal that Amazon has given that video to the cops, but that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, we're not going to do that one because that is a whole separate conversation.
Well, at Chuck, it is a big deal if someone can get at your Ring camera, because now they have a way to monitor when you are coming and going from your own home.
If you use the front door, you're absolutely right, Jeff. I tend to come through another door, not my front door, so I wouldn't have even really thought of that
camera I set.
Well, you need to put a camera on every door, Chuck, because if you don't have a camera on that door, then now I know to come in through the door that you come in.
Yeah, but you don't know.
Siri, remind me to install more cameras at Chuck's house.
You don't know where the landmines are planted on which door, Warren. So, hey, before we leave the security thing, Andrew also did another article that I thought was really important for people to know, and that's the Apple Card lets you change your CCV. And Andrew, I'll let you run with that one too.
Yes, that was really cool. We didn't really hear about this until like just today. That wasn't something that I saw as part of the iOS 15 beta, but it's official now. There's an Apple support document out there where you can change that 3-digit CVV number. They call it this Advanced Fraud Protection System. Once you turn that toggle on, then that number will change periodically. I haven't seen it change yet, but I'm assuming it might change like when you actually use it. So, right now I haven't really used my Apple Card number yet, but yeah. And you can enable it at any time. You can turn it off at any time. And then when Apple says, if you do want to turn it off, like everything sounds like it will be the way it was before, and it won't affect all your subscriptions or other form of recurring payment systems.
Yeah, I really like what Apple's doing here, and because it's not really all that sexy to a lot of people, it's not getting, I think, the coverage or the notification, the publicity it should. So hopefully we gave it just a little bit. So one more reason to get an Apple Card and use an Apple Card. It's improving your security, and maybe one day the big banks will get around to doing some of it. Who knows? Let's see. Okay, Kelly, this one's for you. All right, but I want everybody to sort of chime in a little bit on this one, and that is Marvel pay for subscription in Apple Podcasts for original content. Knowing you do the MCU show, I was really intrigued I wanted to hear what you thought about this, and the fact that this is the first time I've heard about an Apple Podcast subscription that has exclusive content that I might be interested in.
Yeah. I only saw a little bit about it, but part of what I thought was interesting about it is that this is a thing that we saw rolled out. Gosh, was it like really early this year that Apple started saying they were gonna start making this stuff available through the paid, there were going to be the opportunities for paid channels for you to like have a podcast, but then have stuff that's behind a paywall, so to speak, and then sort of have a freemium model, like maybe you can hear things in a different way. The thing that's sort of interesting to me about this one in particular is that what they've put in what they've put behind it is I want to say it's This Week in Marvel is one of the ones that they've put behind so. That's one of the paid ones, and which used to just be a regular show that anybody could listen to. So I think it's now moving behind a paywall where it used to be available to everybody. One of the things that I thought Marvel was doing initially that was interesting was they've got I haven't listened to it yet, but they've got a Wolverine like drama series sort of that's on Apple Podcasts that looks really cool, and I just haven't had a chance to listen to it. I would like to. I don't know if I want to pay for it, but I kind of want to hear Method Man talk about Marvel comics. I think that would be a really entertaining show. And I haven't seen what the other ones are going to be, but it absolutely makes sense that it was going to be Disney that was one of the first to roll out some sort of paid situation when they have the opportunity to do something free or get people to pay them for it. That's kind of Disney's jam. I like an awful lot of it, but I'm very aware of what we're talking about. Like, they are a company, they are for profit. I want to stop for a minute and say bye to Warren, because Warren has to go rest up. So
bye, Warren.
Bye, Warren.
I'm sorry, he snuck away from me.
Join us from the chat.
Yeah.
Join us in the chat room, and you can heckle us from there. I look forward to it.
Because nobody does that.
Well, it's got to start sometime.
Yeah. The thing about it that I sort of wonder about is it's only the audio the audio file itself. So, for example, you mentioned my MCU TV podcast. That's a podcast that's hosted over at The Incomparable. And The Incomparable has a way that you can pay for membership. And when you pay for membership at The Incomparable, you get access to a Slack where other paid members show up and panelists on the shows are there, depending on who they are, to interact with you. Other membership things that I know about give you access to a Discord where you can talk to different people, who are also part of that network. Or they give you access to other sorts of things. And with the podcast, it's literally just the audio feed. Like that's all you get is there is additional audio that comes with that. They don't have any way to monetize anything else that you can put out there and make available for people. So it's really just, you kind of have to treat it like another streaming service, depending on the cost and stuff. I didn't see what the cost was on this one. But I'm interested to see what they end up doing with it and whether or not it becomes a thing where the paywall, like everything that's behind the paywall is behind the paywall forever, or you can have it now. And then like a month or two from now, you get to hear what was the paid stuff, but now it's free because it's not quite as topical or interesting anymore. Things like that. I'm not sure how they're going to handle that. And I'm more interested in this as a paid podcast situation than as a Marvel did a thing situation, but I definitely want to know where it goes. And I, like I said, I haven't decided if I'm going to pay for it or not.
Well, I can tell you it's $3.99 a month. And that's about the only question of the ones that you raised that I can answer, because I know there's several shows out there. They're either Spotify. I hate the word exclusive, but they are advanced, or you listen to them early, or you can wait a week or two or three or more and then hear them later. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Marvel and Disney do this. And because you're right. I mean, there's nothing else to monetize other than that. And part of me says, okay, that they're almost going to have to keep that material behind the paywall in order to have it make sense, because the kind of full production podcasts they're doing, I mean, they're almost like an audiobook, a performed audiobook, or
some radio drama style stuff. I think was one of the ones I saw, and the Wolverine one I think is one of those as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you are familiar with Graphic Audio, their studio, the producers of a lot of Marvel and DC stuff. I mean, but they do sound effects, and they have multiple. They don't have just one guy changing his voice. They have multiple people playing the parts, and so that in my mind is what this is going to be competing with. Yeah, and so I look at it as an audiobook thing. Okay, $3.99 a month. How much would I spend on audiobooks in a month? Now, unfortunately, it's going to be just this particular kind of content. Right. And how much? How much of this content am I going to get that I'm really interested in? So I was fascinated, and I thought, good. I mean, whoever's doing it, whether it was Disney's idea or Marvel's idea, good for you guys, because if anybody can draw an audience, then it's you. So we'll see how it plays out.
I think it'll be fun to see.
Yeah, Jeff?
I think this is Marvel just dipping their toe into that space to see what kind of response they get, because this is a low barrier to entry for them. And if this proves popular enough, I think that we'll see them branching out and offering even more compelling content behind their paywall.
They could start making some of that part of Disney Plus. Maybe all they stream is audio. It's not necessarily a video stream through Disney Plus. And one of the things so when they jack the price up another couple bucks a month, you're getting a bonus of all of this like high quality audio. One of the things that I forgot to mention about The Incomparable is that you get to listen to the live version of the podcast that's being recorded. Some of the shows you can hear them live, and then that like raw unpublished hunk of audio, like this that we're doing, like Chuck, if you just dump this out for people to watch, people who are members, then you can hear like the initial edition, and then after you go back and like part it out and clean it up and stuff, then the finished version is what regular people get, but you can hear it live and you get to hear all the like pre-show chatter and the goofy stuff that we do before the show and after the show, and that kind of stuff makes a difference. And I think that I wonder if there would be something like that might appeal to Marvel in some way, on This Week in Marvel, and some of the other ones where they're sort of the newsy, updatey kind of shows and not the fiction, the audio fiction kinds of ones. I'd be interested to see.
Now that you say that, Kelly, what I want to see is a new show where it's the unedited Ready Room interviews that Will Wheaton does after each Star Trek episode.
Mm-hmm.
I would pay for that in a heartbeat.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Text Expander by Smile. Do more with just a few keystrokes with Text Expander. With so many of us working from home now, at least part-time, if not full-time, we're having to do a lot of things just a little different. That can be good, it can be a challenge, sometimes both at once. That means taking a look at how we're doing things and trying to be more efficient and more consistent. That's why Text Expander from Smile is at the top of my list when I need to try to figure out how to do things just a little bit better. Text Expander can help me do a whole lot with just a few keystrokes. Maybe it's as simple as putting in a mailing address by typing in 2 or 3 characters. Maybe it can be as untime-consuming as putting in regularly used text into an email, a Slack message, or a Teams message. Again, just a few keystrokes can drop in paragraphs of information. Even better, though, is that whatever information we're talking about, it's always the same, always correct every single time, so that not only am I saving time, I'm being sure that it's right. That's important for me as an individual, but it can be critical if you are managing a team and want that kind of consistency each and every time. I can't stress enough how much I want you to visit textexpander.com/podcast right now. Find out more about what Text Expander can do for you, and then download a free demo to see for yourself. textexpander.com/podcast and start making your workflows more efficient today. Thanks to Smile for being the longest running sponsor of MacVoices. But Jeff, thank you, because that's exactly one of the things I was going to bring up, that this is, I'm not sure, honestly, I think it started pre-pandemic, but it seemed to, in fact, I know it did, but it seemed to really gain a lot of traction where if something is released on a particular time or day, or if it's one of those that is broadcast in some fashion, that there would be these after shows, like Will Wheaton's. I think there was one for the first episode of first season of Star Trek Discovery that was hosted by someone else. I know there was one for Mr. Robot.
Walking Dead had one.
Yeah,
they still have one. I don't know. I don't really.
Yeah, there's so much stuff out there, and so many opportunities for this additional content. That I mean, and it's all competing with everything else. So I again, I thought it was really interesting. I'm anxious to see how this develops, whether it does develop or whether the plug gets pulled on it.
Well, you can look forward to Jeff and I's podcast about the Marvel podcasts, available in your favorite podcast app.
And then Jeff and Kelly will come on here on this podcast to talk about their podcast, talking about the other podcast.
That is so meta. Yeah, Kelly, I can be ready to record in 10 minutes. Or wait,
Okay.
When are we wrapping up here?
Well, if you guys want to do it, then this can be the behind the scenes of your new show. Okay.
My guess is we'd have to put an adult tag on it.
Yeah.
You guess.
Explicit.
I'm not guessing.
Oh, man.
Well, you know.
All right. What was intended to be the main subject, but our last subject is the one that sort of is the obvious one, and that's iOS 15 and iPad OS 15 and iPad 15. How many people here have installed on a device?
Of course.
Okay, so
Yeah,
pretty much everybody
June.
Except me.
except you, Jim. You didn't. Okay, so
six.
you're the wild man. Why not?
I'm always slow. I'll probably do it
sooner this year than I usually do, but a lot of times I wait months.
Well,
Okay.
for you, Jim, it doesn't have a big impact on your business. Whereas for me and for Andrew and Kelly, if we're not up to date with the latest of the latest, we can't talk about the stuff we need to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just worried that, the thing will break and then I won't have it, and I use it to measure my blood sugar for my diabetes, so it would be really bad if the phone didn't work. But it seems like they've gotten pretty good at not breaking things.
In all fairness, the thing that's broken for me the most was 14.5. So, because that broke a lot of stuff. But
No, I just mean
that's
like
a really
the
good
phone
reason. I
will
was
brick.
thinking it was because you were a Mac guy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm usually behind on upgrading my Macs too.
Well, and in some cases, there's some good reasons to,
Right. There are a lot of really good reasons to delay on the Mac a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think it's also, especially on iOS, because although Mac is now getting like this as well, that you can't go back, right?
There's no takebacks anymore.
There's no takebacks. Well, there never have been on iOS. So
you could. It was just kind of a pain in the neck, but you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, I never heard of anybody really
For a
successfully
minute.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we talked pre-show, Chuck, about 2 days later now, 15.1 beta 1's out, and come on, Apple, why did you release this version of iOS 2 days after we want to get used to 15.0? Yes, of course, the .0 is always going to be the one that there's going to probably be some bugs, but then I think that's the quickest they've done it, at least in beta. So that's going to give people more reason, like Jim, to want to wait and not upgrade until at least the .1 version is in the public's hands.
Well, that wasn't the thing that bugged me about it. I guess it was the fact that the coverage out there on the Mac web is all about all the cool new features of 15,
right?
And then they start interspersing articles with, well, this is now in 15.1. Now,
right.
To their credit, they usually say 15.1 beta, but it's like, guys, just give it a rest. I mean, look, it's great that we have this accelerated rate of development, and that Apple's on top of it, and therefore, developers can be as well. But at some point, it's just like
sort of to that point, I got an email from one of my customers that was having a problem running my software on Monterey, and he's like, "Come on, guys, Apple has released this, and
not yet."
Well,
they haven't.
That's what I replied, but he didn't believe me. He was "Yes, they have."
Monterey was a month
that's
out on beta 7.
There's so much of this coverage, and people don't, see this distinction between, when it's really beta, and anybody can sign up for the beta, and so he was all bent out of shape that he was having a problem.
That's a bummer, dude.
Well, and that's
welcome to my life.
Yeah, but see, there's Jim representing the developer community, and this is exactly why we suggest people don't upgrade, or don't run the betas, because things are broken, and if it's a week or 2 or 3 after, then okay, maybe it's time to contact the developer and say, hey, what are your plans? But Jim, you can speak to it a lot more about what it takes to get something up to speed when a new version of an OS comes out.
Well, it varies, but sometimes Apple breaks things.
Yeah,
and then you have to figure that out. It's not always on a major release either. Sometimes it can just be like some point release, and oops,
But that's
we're scrambling now.
That's sort of the nature of things, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gotten a lot less bad over time. I'm not saying it's better, but it's gotten less bad as people have gotten more involved in the public beta, because as more people try stuff, as more stuff breaks on more varieties of hardware, I feel like it makes the transition for everyone else a little smoother. Jerks who email support when beta 0 is out, the day that the keynote happened, and that afternoon go, your crap doesn't work with the new beta, what's wrong with you? Those people aside, because I used to do a lot of tech support for a lot of people, and I have had to reply to that email on a lot more occasions than is proper for standard issue human behavior. But here we are. So that said, like, if you take the jerks that email people like Jim, who are lovely developers and don't deserve that kind of grief and heartache, out of the equation, for the most part, people who install and go, this thing didn't work, or that thing didn't work, and aren't mad about it, and just go like, this is like, when I click here, it turns off my computer, even though the thing I clicked on is not the thing that says turn off my computer. And here you go. Here's some feedback about it. If you can get that stuff out in the world on all kinds of hardware and with all combinations of software and monitors hooked up and all kinds of stuff, it makes it a lot easier to roll that out on a much wider scale. I do sometimes feel a lot more comfortable advising people to upgrade much sooner than I used to, because a lot of the huge gotcha stuff that we saw in earlier versions of macOS, in macOS 10, are not things that that there's not a lot of that we have seen in later updates and things like that. Like, it has gotten smoother over time. Is it smooth? No. Is it less bumpy than it used to be because regular users don't spend quite as much time crashing headfirst into the rough edges of the software that just came out? Yes.
Earlier today, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I heard the best wild tech support story ever. Can I take a minute and tell it? It's worth it. It's great.
Yeah, let's all get our popcorn. Tell us the story, Jim.
It's worth popcorn. So this guy, he got a call, and this guy's complaining. He says, I bought your software, and now whenever I stick a disk in my computer, this was in the days of floppies, it immediately ejects. And like your software broke the ROM in my computer. This is back in really early days, and they were like, that's not possible, And the guy was like, well, can I say I bought your software, and now, this is what happens. So fortunately, they weren't able to help him, and fortunately, the guy did figure it out and actually called back and explained what happened. So apparently he had an extra mouse connected to this computer, and he had some books on it, and he took the manual for the new software and he put it on the top of the pile, and that was enough that the mouse was permanently clicked.
Oh Lord.
And I was like, yeah, Rick, your software did cause this computer to eject this every time. It was totally your fault.
Fashion.
It was your documentation that caused the ejection. Yeah.
That was a worthwhile story, wasn't it?
That's why Apple doesn't ship manuals, says Brittany. That's a good idea.
That's good point, Brittany.
I once got a call from someone who said, I was doing printer support, and they said, I'm calling because I need a floppy disk. And I was surprised. I said, well, if you just bought it, like, there should have been a floppy disk in the box. Well, all of everything in the manual says that there's a floppy disk, and there's a disk in the box, but it's hard plastic. It's not flexible at all. And I need the floppy because everything refers to the floppy, and the floppy is what you need to send me. So.
Yeah, we could tell tech support stories.
So
all day
anytime anybody
it's
ever says,
amazing.
Anytime anyone ever wants to tell a story about people, like, I have at least 5 more stories like that one that I can tell you about. This is what you have to be aware of with the kind of things that when you are trying to explain something to people. David probably has the same.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh, well, sure.
Does it mean you should get to be a jerk about it to Jim because you're the dipstick that installed Monterey? No. Does it mean you should maybe send Jim an email and a couple of screenshots and maybe a build number and go, this is what's up. It happens every time. Thought you'd want to know? Yes. That makes you a favorite, and people will look forward to email from you. But yeah.
Yeah.
There are nice people too. No question.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Of course.
I've spoken with both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Brittany, did you have any trouble installing anything or any of the iOS 15s that you installed, or any of the
Back at the
15,
beginning of June? No, actually, it went pretty smooth.
The iOS 15s you've installed.
No, I mean, did you install anything just yesterday, today?
No, I can't because in the rare case that you are a ridiculous human being whose entire life is run by shortcuts embedded in within other shortcuts that then have third-party actions that happen in them,
Which are all
they don't
contained
run
in
on iOS
shortcuts.
15. Other than that, the beta has been beautifully stable. So if you're not a huge shortcut person, it's actually been glorious. My phone's hot, but other than that, it's been great. But no, I still need a device that runs shortcuts, which means my iPad has to stay on 14.
Okay. Andrew, how
I
about
haven't
you?
even thought to check all of my shortcuts. I wonder what's not working.
Jeff will
It
be
was
back.
really validating when Matthew Castanelli validated that he was like, oh, no, this is a bug. This is my feedback number, and I could just duplicate it.
Did you guys see the story that ran around earlier this week about how a security researcher killed everyone's shared shortcuts months ago?
They were restored.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just that we got the story late because he couldn't share it before then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I knew about the problem at the time because.
Well, obviously, like hundreds of thousands of people knew about it at the time. But I don't think people realized that someone actually caused it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just the shared shortcuts, as I recall.
Yeah. No,
Right.
he broke into Apple's server and was experimenting with it, and he assumed that Apple's security was going to stop him, and he thought he would get an error message. So he's like, "Oh, what if I say delete all?" That didn't give me an error message. That's weird.
And that's why Andrew and I still have a show on Friday.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm glad that he shared what happened with Apple so that they could fix it, and Apple, after they changed their pants, got right on fixing it.
And they asked him not to. Please stop experimenting with that system until we tell you.
Yeah, but they did reward him too.
Yeah,
like that
did.
was still good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I would like
we were
to-
paranoid that it was that they were getting rid of that feature. Like we didn't know why it wasn't working because Apple didn't tell you stuff. We were just like, so what are we going to do? Because a lot of people were using that for their backup system, using those shared links. And, some people have published libraries of shortcuts, and that was the real issue. So when they did release a patch, it was good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it wasn't just a patch. There was some more that they had to scramble to restore backups and then merge that with whatever new changes
they did. We were relieved.
This is why it's important to have backups, people.
Yes, and
so we're going to do the password and the backup rant in the same show.
Well, and I think
No, we're just going to joke
Apple
about.
that has to do the backup.
We're going to joke about all the backups being on tapes.
Well, and I will do a rant. I'll rant about somebody breaking into Apple servers and experimenting. It's very nice that Apple rewarded him. I'd like to reward him all right with a one-way ticket to Siberia.
He didn't think it would work.
What are you talking about? He
uncovered a problem.
It's Apple's fault. It's not his fault.
It was an accident. He said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but
that's what security researchers do.
I have a real problem with that. I just, if you're in there, if Apple asks you to do it, that's one thing. But if somebody is in there playing around with something they aren't supposed to be playing around with, or they're in somewhere they shouldn't be, and then they mess up my problems or
that's the whole
stuff.
point of the bug bounty program.
Yeah.
It's to have more people out there finding the flaws that are the kind of people who will report it.
Yeah, it's much better than it wasn't somebody. What if it was somebody that didn't report it and just kept doing it, or
malicious?
It's how it's supposed to work.
Oh yeah. But I mean, from what Jim said, and I don't remember the article enough. He said that he broke into Apple servers. Okay, stop right there. That's enough. Siberia.
That's what security researchers do.
They try to break into Apple servers.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Lots of
not
things.
just
or
Apple, but
Microsoft's,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
Exxon's, or whatever.
Well, then they better be darn competent and not mess things up. I mean, if he was able to break into Apple servers right there, that's where you stop and say, fix this. I'm sorry, but
I want them
I-
to keep doing it. That's how we find out these things, is when somebody who's the kind of person who reports it finds it.
says the lady who just had is worried about having her shortcuts broken.
Well, yeah. Also Apple's problem to fix.
Mm.
But mine's not a security issue. I mean, it was frustrating when it happened, but what happened was Apple found out there was a problem. And then it was more secure.
Struggling.
Yeah, and if you look at the sequence, you can see why he assumed that this wasn't going to do anything. There are people out there that are malicious that are trying to cause trouble, and people like this are the ones that are getting in there and finding problems so that they can be fixed before the malicious people get in there.
This MacVoices Live panel discussion concludes in the next edition of MacVoices, where we continue our comments about iOS 15 installation, initial uses and all, and the panel has a little bit of a disagreement about a hacker who broke into Apple servers and broke shortcuts. That's next time on MacVoices, and I hope you'll join us. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.